Hello. Today I will discuss one important thing, JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. So, what is this JSON? As we can see, in a typical enterprise solution, we use MVC framework, view, controller, and model. So, from view, it is designed using HTML or JSP, and the scripting what is used over here is JavaScript, or there can be some frameworks like AngularJS, jQuery, and also we use Ajax to call anything from the server side. On the other hand, controller, we use servlet or we use any starts2 framework based controller, and there is a model layer which is the data access object layer and business layer which actually interacts with the database. So this is a typical MVC design pattern. So whenever view is calling the controller or controller is calling the model, so any communication from view to controller or controller to view, controller to model, and from model to controller, data exchange is happening. So how the data can be exchanged between view and controller to view, I will be focusing. As you can see, view is actually getting designed by JSP where HTML is the tag. So whenever we are sending any data from view to the controller, let's say you want to send the data through Ajax. So if there is a long data parameters, then I cannot send each and every individual parameter like that. There can be a complex structure of data. So the idea is to create a JavaScript object out of all these view components, and then if we can create a simple string or text that is in some format, let's say from HTML data forms I created the JavaScript object, and from JavaScript object I created a string which I call it as JSON string. So it has a particular structure, and if I can send this JSON string to the controller, and whenever I get any response, I will also get in JSON string. So the mode of communication between the view and the controller and the view can be done using JSON string. And from this JSON string, if I can again create the JavaScript object, then we can again transfer it back to the HTML data forms. So already inbuilt function is there, which is in browser can be accessed by JSON.stringify. This JSON.stringify converts any JavaScript object to JSON string, and whereas during response side this JSON.parse actually creates JSON string to JavaScript objects. So if we can use this, then the mode of communication between the view and the controller becomes easier. If we use XML, then what is the problem? It is because XML you have to load and you have to parse it, and then you have to find out your element and show into the HTML data forms. But JSON string is very easier. You don't have to parse like that. JSON inbuilt parser will create the parsing and create the object out of it. And for JSON.stringify, you don't have to prepare the JSON string by yourself manually, it will automatically generate. Whereas for XML, everything you have to prepare by yourself from the raw data. So this is the JSON which is happening in the view side, like to convert JavaScript object to JSON string by JSON.stringify, and from JSON string to JavaScript object by Json.parse. In the same way, JSON string to Java object and Java object to JSON string is happening at the controller side, and for that I'll be preparing a separate video. In this video I am focusing only on the view part. So let's go to some code to explain it better. I have created a code which you might already be aware of. In the earlier videos I put in the I button, you will be able to see that video where the student object was created out of all the input fields. So whenever I am creating on generate on the button UI to JS object, this UI to JS object is actually creating the student object and assigning all the attributes value from the document elements. So that you know. So here actually I will test my JSON.stringify and JSON.parse. So as we have the object, if I want to create JSON string out of this object, I'll write JSON.stringify and that object. So now my JSON string is prepared, and now if I want to get back the object again from the JSON string, then I'll write JSON.parse and I'll pass on the object and I will get the transmitted object from that JSON. So this is the code. Now what I can do, I can test it. So let me test it first. This is HTML JavaScript object mapping. .html, so JavaScript object mapping. So I will be opening it in the Chrome browser. So it has opened. So let me put something. And then I click on generate. See, it is creating the JSON string. So this is the JSON string what it has prepared. So JSON string is a very simple format. It's like the JavaScript notation for creating any object. So each and every element will start with the second braces and end with the second braces, and this is the key value. So like roll number is a key, so key and its value is this. First name is a key and its value is this. Last name is a key and its value is this. Department, so it is separated by comma and double quotes. So this is the basic structure, and anyway you don't have to prepare it by yourself. So JSON.stringify is doing this, and if I click on OK, then JSON object is prepared, and from that object we can access all the attributes of it. So this is all what I wanted to explain JSON the client side, and for server side how the JSON string is converted to Java object, and from Java object how it is converted to JSON string, that I will be showing in the next tutorial. Thank you very much for watching my video, and please subscribe to this channel if you have liked it. Thank you very much. Bye bye.